Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating all the different types of configurations that you can create using the Ahmsville Dial. This video is going to be part 1 of 2. In the second video, I'm going to be talking about the Space Nav feature of the Ahmsville Dial and how to set that up to use with SolidWorks, Fusion 360 and Blender. These are the three CAD softwares currently supported by the Ahmsville Dial Space Nav variants. But in this video, I'm just going to be talking about the normal types of configurations that you can create and use using the dial and the companion app. Before I proceed with the video, I'd first like to say a huge thank you to all you guys that watch my videos, leave a like, and then go as far as to leave a comment. It means a lot to me to go through the comment section and read all your positive feedback. So a huge thank you to all you guys that watch and like my videos, and to all my subscribers, new and old. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to you guys. I really appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel. It shows me that there are people out there that appreciate the amount of work I put into my project, and it really encourages me to want to make more and share more awesome project with you guys. So I'm looking forward to continuing to share more of my project with you guys. So a huge thank you to you guys as well. Without wasting too much time, let's get to the video. A little warning though, this is an unscripted video, so it probably won't go as smoothly as I would like. So bear with me. Hopefully, I can still pass all the information I need to pass across to you guys without much fuss. So let's get to the video. So the first type of shortcut I want to demonstrate is the single key shortcut. And single key shortcuts can be a single letter or a number, or even a modified key like Control, Alt, Spacebar, or anything in between. Now, to demonstrate this, I'll be using Adobe Premiere Pro. The single key shortcut is the most basic thing that you can do with the dial. So I'm going to demonstrate that now. Okay, so I have Adobe Premiere Pro opened. So if I go to markers, you can see we have mark in, mark out, and those are mapped to the key I and O. So this is an example of a single key shortcut. Essentially, these are things you can just do with a single key on the keyboard, and you can do the same with the dial. So instead of reaching for the keyboard, you can use the dial to replace that control. So I'm just going to quickly create a configuration to do this marking and mark out on the dial, so you can see how that works. So if I go to dial configurations, for this demonstration, I don't want to modify my default configurations because I already have them set the way I want them to be. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to create a new configuration, and then we'll call that test. Then you can also give it a color just so we can quickly identify it. Just so it's uniform, I'm going to set all the keys, all the macro keys to the same color as well. This way, whenever I switch to the test configuration, you'll be able to see it on the camera. It will be clear because the color would obviously be dark orange, so you can quickly identify when I'm using the test configuration. So one more thing I need to do, or one more thing I usually do whenever I create a new configuration, is to assign a key to open the pop-up window, and I'll be explaining more about the pop-up window later on in the video. So but for now, I'm just going to assign MK5 tab to always pull up the pop-up window. This is just the way I like to create my configuration. So let me just add a note: open pop-up. Right, and then create and save. Okay, now to demonstrate the single key shortcuts, I'm going to create the marking and mark out controls here. So I can use MK1 and MK2. And according to Premiere Pro, that's I. And then I had a function note that says Premiere Pro mark in. And then MK2 to mark out its O. And then I also add a function note Premiere Pro mark out. The function notes you see me adding will make more sense when I'm talking about the pop-up window. But for now, just bear with me. So I've set MK1 to I and then MK2 to O, and then all I need to do now is create configuration. Okay. Whenever you modify or create a new configuration, you obviously need to reprogram the dial, and you can quickly do that by clicking on the Reprogram Dial button. Then I simply click on upload. All right, so it's done uploading now, and the app has automatically reconnected to the dial. So if I go back to Premiere Pro, you can see the color scheme on the dial is currently not what we set it to. It's supposed to show orange, but that's because the dial has automatic app switching on currently, and it has defaulted to my default Premiere Pro configuration. So if I pull up the pop-up window by clicking on MK5, you can see active configuration is set to Premiere Pro, which is my default Premiere Pro configuration. But we don't want to use my default configuration. We want to use the test configuration. To do that, I just have to pull up the pop-up window and then switch to the test configuration, which is this, and then close the pop-up. Now you can see the color on the dial is all orange, which is what we set it to in the configuration. So that's how you can easily identify when I'm using the test setup throughout this demonstration. If I now go back to the timeline and I click on MK1, you can see I've just created a marking on Adobe Premiere Pro. And if I move further on the timeline and I click on MK2, I have also created the mark out. So that's essentially what a single key shortcut is, and those are things you can easily do on the dial. Like I said earlier, you can also have single key modifier shortcuts. For example, to play and pause the video in Premiere Pro, you can click on the space bar. So you can also set a configuration on the dial app to spacebar, and in doing so, you can play and pause the video in Premiere Pro. So that's all for the single key shortcut. It's essentially the most basic thing you can do on the dial and its application. So the second type of shortcuts I want to demonstrate are 2 and 3 key shortcuts. These are typically combination shortcuts like Control Alt Delete, Control S, Control Z. Usually, multiple key shortcuts like that will have 1 or 2 modifiers and then a key at the end. These are also controls that you can create on the dial application. So if I go back to markers on Premiere Pro, I'm just going to pick one, and I think clear in and out is a good one. This is mapped to Control Shift X. So if I go back to the dial configuration, I'm still going to be using the test configuration we created for this. So I think we already used MK1 and MK2. So let's use MK3, and that's shift, as key right shift. Sorry, I think it's key right control, key right shift, and then X. I'm not sure. Let me just confirm that again. Yeah, that's Control Shift X. Yeah. So yeah, we have Control Shift X. So I'm just going to give that a note as well, and that's Premiere Pro. Clear in and out, and then I save the configuration. I'm just going to disconnect from the dial so I can reprogram it. Okay, it's done programming, and after a few seconds the app should automatically reconnect to the dial. Yeah. All right. The app has reconnected to that. So another way to switch configuration is if you come to the manual switching tab, you can simply type in the name of the configuration. In this case, the name of the configuration we intend to use is test. So I just type in test and enter, and as you can see, the dial has switched its configuration to the test configuration. So if I go back to Adobe Premiere Pro and I click on the timeline, I should be able to clear this in and out marker by clicking on MK3, and that's, no, that doesn't work. I'm not sure why. Let me just confirm the configuration again. Test MK3, key right control, key right shift, then X. Yeah, I'm not sure why that doesn't work. I'm not sure why that's not working. Yeah, okay, it did just now. I don't know why it didn't work earlier, but if I pull up the pop-up window again, you can see it says MK3 tab is set to Premiere Pro clear in and out. So I guess that was just a little error. I don't know why it didn't work. So let me just create the markers again with MK1 and then MK2 and then MK3 should clear it. Yeah, and that works as it should. I'm not sure why it didn't work earlier. So that's essentially multiple key shortcuts. That's, you can have 2 or 3, but the maximum is 3. As you can see, the combo boxes here are you just have 3 combo boxes here, so you can only have a maximum of 3 combination shortcuts, and most applications don't go past 3, although there are some exceptions. So that's it for 2 and 3 key shortcuts. The next type of shortcut I want to demonstrate is the continuous key shortcut. Now, what this means is in certain applications, shortcut keys are the type where you need to hold down certain keys. This is common in Zoom type operations in different applications. So for this, I'm not sure I can use Adobe Premiere Pro, so I'll just use SolidWorks to demonstrate this. All right, so I have SolidWorks opened with a sample model here. So typically when you want to zoom in and out on SolidWorks, you use Shift, middle click, and then you move the mouse up and down. So that's how you zoom, that's how you smooth zoom in SolidWorks. using the keyboard and the mouse. So instead of having to use key and mouse combinations like this to zoom every time you need to zoom in and out in certain applications, you can use the dial to perform the same operation in a much simpler and intuitive way. One thing I need to mention with regards to continuous key shortcuts is this function is unique to the knob. That's the knob 1 and knob 2. If you have the base variant or the macro key variant, you will obviously have just one knob, but for the space nav and the absolute variant, you have two. So this continuous key shortcut is unique, or sorry, it's specific to the knob, the knobs, that's both knob 1 and knob 2, and each axis on the space nav. So any of the axes on the space nav can also perform this continuous keystrokes. Now the logic that drives the rotary encoder and the macro key is different, and that's why this type of shortcut is specific to the rotary encoders alone and the space nav. Obviously, these are analog type controls, unlike buttons, which are meant to be discrete. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate this by creating a configuration to replace the zoom operation in SolidWorks. So if I go back to the configuration, I'm still going to be using the test configuration for this. I'm going to be setting this up for knob 2. Yeah, I'll be using the second knob because I don't want to use the first knob, because I want to demonstrate how you can use the space nav as well to achieve the same thing. And if I attach the same operation to the first knob as well as the space nav, there'll be a collision and you'll be able to quickly tell which control is actually performing the zoom operation. So I'll use the second knob and then the space nav. So I believe to zoom in SolidWorks is shift, that's key right shift and then mouse middle and then mouse move up. And then for counterclockwise, it's the same thing, key right shift, mouse middle, and then mouse move down. So I'm just gonna attach a function node to that as well. So SW as SolidWorks, zoom in, and then zoom out. And then if I go to space nav, I have it set to manually configure, so I can also do key right shift, mouse middle, and then mouse move up. And then for tilt down, I do key right shift, mouse middle. It's the same thing, mouse middle, and then mouse move down. And then I have zoom in and then zoom out as the function note. Now, just to compare what happens if you try to perform continuous operation with the macro keys or the capacitive touch. One thing I forgot to mention is the macro keys and the capacitive touch, they have very similar logic behind them. So they work in a very similar way. But let me just use the macro key to demonstrate this. I think I can use MK3 and MK4. So key right shift, mouse middle, and then mouse move up. And then I attach the function note, and then key right shift again, mouse middle, and then mouse move down, function note. What I've essentially done is I've attached the second knob to zoom in and out in SolidWorks. I've also attached MK3 and MK4 to perform the same zoom in and out in SolidWorks. I also did the same thing for the tilt up and tilt down on the space nav. Just wanted to show you everything all at once. So create and save. Then I'll need to reprogram the dial. So disconnect and then upload. So if I go back to SolidWorks now, okay, sorry, I don't think, okay, it's not connected yet. Yeah, figured as much. It takes a while for the app to reconnect after you reprogram the dial, and that's intentional because there's a little bit of delay on the dial when it's starting up. So I have to include a similar delay on the app before it attempts to reconnect to it. Otherwise, it will fail. So it's reconnected now, and I can just switch to a test configuration again. And then if I go back to SolidWorks and then I rotate the second knob, you can see I can zoom in and out. And that's performing zoom operation in a continuous manner. So I can do the same thing with the space nav by, you can see, by tilting up and down. The space nav is obviously more sensitive than the rotary encoder. That's why it's zooming a bit faster. So you can see how that zooms. That's a continuous zooming operation. So let me show you the difference with zooming in and out with a key shortcut instead. So you can see I can zoom in and out with the macro keys, but it's not continuous. And if I press and hold, it doesn't do anything. That's because hold on the macro keys also is also a control on its own, and you see that on the configuration page. So you can see it zooms discretely, which is not what you want, obviously, when you want to perform zooming operations like this. So this is a typical example of a continuous key shortcut, which is just one of the things you can do on the dial. You can see I can zoom in and out on space nav as well. Although zooming in and out by using shortcuts is redundant in SolidWorks because I already have a dedicated add-in for SolidWorks that allows me to fully manipulate my model without affecting my keyboard or mouse. I'll be demonstrating this in full details in the second part of this video. That's the video dedicated to the space nav feature of the dial. But for now, I just wanted to demonstrate the continuous key shortcuts. The next type of shortcut I want to talk about is letter-based navigations or shortcuts. Now, the application I use this type of shortcuts in is Altium Designer. So I'm just going to close SolidWorks and open Altium Designer. Now, what I mean by letter-based navigations or shortcuts is if you take a look at the menu items here, there is always, there's a letter highlighted or underlined on each of the menu item. For example, for file, it's F, for edits, it's E, for project, it's C. So what this means is I can pull up those menus by using the highlighted character. So for example, if I click on F on my keyboard, if I click on F on my keyboard, it should open the file menu. And under the file menu as well, you can see all the or almost all the sub menus that you have or sub configurations that you have also have some of the letters highlighted, which means you can further navigate down that menu using those letters. So for example, if I click on F, N, and then J, I can easily create a new project. So Altium Designer is one of the applications I know that uses letter-based or character-based navigations like this. And this is also a type of configuration or a type of shortcut that you can use the dial for. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like in the configuration. Now for this, I won't be using the test configuration because I already have my default Altium configuration set up to use character-based navigation. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like on the configuration, and then we'll come back and see that in action. So if I go back to configuration, then I open my Altium configuration, you can see under double tap and short press, the combo boxes are filled with just letters. For double tap, I have T, G, H. So this is a letter-based navigation, and if you take a look at the function notes, it says what it's supposed to do is shelve and restore polygons. And then if I take a look at short press, you can see I have that set to TGA, and the function note says it's supposed to report all polygons. Now, if you don't design PCBs, shelving and restoring polygons might not make much sense to you, but I just wanted to use Altium to demonstrate these types of shortcuts. Obviously, Altium Designer is not the only application that uses these types of shortcuts. So, but for me, Altium Designer is the only application I have installed in which I use these types of navigations. So let me just go back to Altium and I'll show you what that does. So now in Altium, we're still on the test configuration. So I need to switch to the Altium configuration. So I can do that by pulling up the pop-up and then switching to Altium. Yeah, and then closing the pop-up. Now you can see the color scheme on the dial has changed, indicating what I've set to identify the Altium configuration. Alright, so according to my configuration, if I double tap on the dial, I should be able to hide or shelve the ground planes on my PCB. Yeah, and that works as expected. So if I double tap again, weird. Yeah, I should be able to bring back the polygons, and then I can report it by short pressing. Yeah, so that's essentially what letter-based navigation is. So let me just try and do the same with the actual keys, so you can see what's going on, because the dial goes through them pretty fast. So essentially what the dial is doing is entering T, G, and then H, and then to report the polygon, it enters T, G, E, and that reports the polygon. So that restores the polygon, and then to report it, I click on T, G, A. So that's the exact same thing the dial is doing, but instead of having to use the keyboard in general, I can just use the capacitive touch. Weird. Again, I can just use the capacitive touch. The double tap on the capacitive touch is a bit finicky at the moment. I'm not quite sure why, but that's essentially what letter-based navigation is. Now, the next type of shortcut I want to demonstrate is the Boolean type shortcuts, and you would have already seen this in Altium Designer as what I just demonstrated. So if I go back to the configuration page, you'll notice that under double tap, I have the dual shortcuts checkbox checked. Essentially, what this does is it allows me to assign two shortcuts like this to one control on the dial. So in this case, I have it set to shelve and restore polygons. So essentially, what a Boolean type shortcut is a type of operation that can only be in one state. For example, the polygon on this PCB can either be hidden or visible. There's nothing in between, which makes it a Boolean type operation, and hence the shortcut associated is also a Boolean type shortcut. So instead of having two separate keys to perform the shelving and restoring the polygons, I can attach both both configurations to one key by simply activating the dual shortcut option. You can see that gives me the ability to essentially assign two shortcuts. So I have shortcut one, which is assigned to TGH, and that shelves the polygon, and then shortcut two, which is assigned to TGE, and that restores the polygon. So if I go back to Altium just to demonstrate that again, if I double tap, I can restore the polygon, and then double tap again to hide the polygon. So that's a Boolean type operation, and you don't need to assign shortcuts like that to two separate keys. By simply using the dual shortcut option, you can assign them to the same control on the dial, and that just gives you more option instead of using up keys unnecessarily. So the next type of control I want to demonstrate is text printing. So if you take a look at each of the macro keys on the configuration page, you'll notice this text box. And essentially what that allows you to do is it allows you to print out predefined text into whichever text editor you currently have opened. So if I say type hello, for example, you can see it automatically deactivates the shortcut combo boxes, which means you can't use text printing and shortcut keys at the same time, which makes sense because you can only do one. So once you enter a text into the text box, it will automatically deactivate the shortcut boxes, and then if I clear the text, you can use the shortcuts again. So for me, the way I use the text printing feature is when I'm writing code, especially in Arduino IDE. Arduino IDE does not have any sort of code completion or code suggestion, so it can be tedious to have to type repetitive code blocks, especially if they are code blocks that you use frequently. So what I like to do is I'll type out the code block I used. Say for example a for loop. So a for loop will look something like this. And then I can also attach just the comment sign, just to remind me to comment that code block. So what I can do is I can copy this this for loop and then go to the dial configuration. Let's see, which macro key do I have free? Okay, yeah, this is a good time to demonstrate the old function on the macro keys. So I'm going to set it to NK2 old. So I'm just going to paste it here. So you can see the code block has been pasted into the text box. So I'm just going to add a function note as well. Say print for loop. All right, create and save. Then I need to reprogram the dial. Okay, and then wait for the app to reconnect to it. And then I'm just going to switch to the test configuration again. So let me just open up a, or I can use Arduino IDE too, so you can see how that works. Say I want to insert a for loop here. I don't have to go through the trouble of typing out the for loop again because I already have it on the dial, and I can just do, so I can simply print out the code block by by pressing and holding MK2. So yeah, and as you can see, the for loop was printed. I think it printed 2 brackets there. I think that's because whenever you click on enter, automatically in Arduino IDE, it adds an additional bracket. So you can see this can be really convenient when you're writing code. So it doesn't have to be for a for loop only. It can be for any type of code blocks that you use frequently, and you can just attach that to a key and then print that repeatedly without having to type it every time. So that's the text printing feature. The final types of control I want to demonstrate is the inbuilt controls. So these are controls built into the app itself. So if I go to my default configuration, for example, you can see I have this checkbox that says use app. In front of all the configurations on this page, you have the use app checkbox. So whenever you check that box, you're essentially telling the app that, or you're essentially telling the dial that the app handles this particular configuration or this particular control. And once you click on use app, you have 2 options. You have the inbuilt functions and you have file/script. So I'm just going to quickly explain what this file or script does. So if you activate this, you'll be able to browse to a specific file. Now the file could be a document or an application or a script. Essentially anything that you can launch with a double tap. You can select as the file or script that you want to launch. So for example, I could select a PDF here, for example, and whenever I click on that control on the dial, it will automatically open that file. If it's an application, it will automatically launch the application, and if it's a script or something, it will also launch the script. So that's what file or script does. Now, if you go to inbuilt functions and you pull down the combo box, you can see a list of all the controls I currently have programmed into the dial app itself. So the first on the list is open pop-up. So this is what allows me to assign a specific key on the dial and then use that to quickly pull up the pop-up window. So the other types of controls that you have there are media controls like volume up, volume down, volume mute, play, pause, next, and things like that. And then if I scroll down further, you can see I have SW, which stands for SolidWorks. So I have some inbuilt functions for SolidWorks also programmed into the companion app. And then if I scroll down further, I also have some controls for Fusion 360. That's what FU 360 stands for. And then I also have a few for Blender as well. So I'm not going to go too much into details about this configurations because I'll be covering them in the second part of this video. That's the video dedicated to the Space Nav feature of the dial. But as you can see in my default configuration, I have a few of them set to media controls and then play pause. Essentially, my default configuration is what I use when I'm not working on a specific application. You can see I have it set to default here, which means whenever I'm not in a recognized application, it will default to this application and to default to this configuration. And in this configuration, what I typically use it for is media controls and a few other minor things. So I can just quickly demonstrate that by switching the configuration. I open the pop-up again and then switch to the default configuration. And then if I move the knob, you can see the volume on my system changes. And if I had like a media player opened, I can also pause and play with the capacitive touch. So that's essentially what inbuilt controls do. And as time goes on, I'll be I'll be expanding this list and adding more controls as I find a need for them, and you guys can also recommend any configurations that you like for me to include in the app. So if it's something I can easily get to, I'll usually implement it and then roll it out with the next release of the companion app. The last thing I want to talk about is the pop-up window. You've seen me use the pop-up window throughout this demonstration. So let me just explain what that is and how you can set it up. Now, whenever you want to create a configuration or whenever you want to create a new configuration for the dial, the first thing you need to do is to pick out a control on your dial that will be dedicated to opening the pop-up window. Now, for me, what I typically choose MK5 tap. So whenever I click on MK5 tap, it pulls up the pop-up window. Now, once you have a control on the dial selected that you want to dedicate to putting up the pop-up, in each of the configurations you create, you're going to map that control to open the pop-up window. And the way you do that is by selecting the use app checkbox and then going to inbuilt and then selecting inbuilt function and then selecting open pop-up. So that allows you to use that particular control to open the pop-up window. If you don't want to dedicate a specific control on the dial to open the pop-up window, you can also open it by clicking on show pop-up in the companion app. So if I click on show pop-up, it does the exact same thing. And then click on show and then it pulls up the pop-up window. So once you open up the pop-up window, there are two main things you want to do once you have this window open. And the first thing is to switch between the configurations you currently have stored on the dial. You can see as I rotate the knob, I can switch between the configurations. So the second thing you can do is you can essentially switch between automatic app switching or manual app switching. So if you take a look at this lock icon here, if I click on it, it locks, and that means I've locked my configuration to this active configuration, which in this case is the default configuration. So what that means is even if I switch to different applications on my system, the configuration on the dial does not change. And that's because I have locked it to the default configuration. So to switch back to automatic app switching, you just need to pull up the pop-up window and then unlock the configuration. So now when you close the pop-up window and then switch between applications, you note that the configuration changes. That's because you've switched to automatic app switching, and you can confirm this on the app. You can see it's set to auto switching. So if I pull up the pop-up window again and then lock the configuration and then close it, you can see it stays on manual switching. That's because I've locked it again. The other function the pop-up window has is to show you how you've configured your dial. So you notice that whenever I created a configuration throughout this demonstration, I always attached a function note. So attaching a function note allows you to, it's just like a quick reminder when you open the pop-up window to tell you exactly what this particular control does. So if you create a fairly complex configuration, it can be difficult to remember what each control on the dial does. And then when you open the pop-up window, it will show you how you've configured the controls on the dial for that specific application. So if I scroll to the test application that we used throughout this demo, you can see all the individual notes that I attached to all the configurations that we created. So you can see we have for SolidWorks, Premiere Pro. So essentially, it's just a way to quickly remind yourself in case you forget what you have your controls set to. So whenever you create a configuration, it's good practice to always attach a function note. That way you can refer to it in the pop-up window. Now you also notice this bottom section. Now this section is reserved for the space nav feature of the dial. So if your dial variant does not have a space nav feature, then you don't need to worry about this. I'll be demonstrating this and going into more details about what you can do. Although it's pretty self-explanatory. You can make some simple adjustments to how the space nav works on this pop-up window, but I'll be going into that in more details in the next video. But that's essentially what the pop-up window does. I'm sure I'll be including more functionality to it in the future, but for now, that's all it does, and hopefully you get the general idea of what I was trying to achieve when I implemented that feature. Okay, so I think that's all for this video. In the next video, as I've mentioned, I'll be going through how to set up the space nav for use in SolidWorks, Fusion 360, and then Blender. So those are the three CAD softwares that are currently supported on the dial. So thank you guys for watching, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. Bye.